Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you're listening or watching this. Um, I've been getting a lot more pushback on my thoughts about the modernization of the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948 and 2012 by President Obama. And I've been trying to explain it to people online, so I think I've written a newer Substack that breaks it down easier so that people can understand it a little bit better. Uh, Let me make sure I'm sharing this and I am still on screen. Yes, I am. Okay, let me get to reading this to y'all. All right, the Modernized Smith-Mundt Act of 2012 and how its effect on the mainstream media. How the mainstream media can misrepresent facts without accountability thanks to the 2012 Smith-Mundt Modernization. By Sammy the Squirrel. The mainstream media's ability to misrepresent facts has always been a concern of mine. But the modernization of the Smith-Mundt Act in 2012 quietly handed them a powerful new tool to do so, without much fear of accountability. If you've ever wondered how the mainstream media can twist stories, cherry pick facts, or push narratives that feel more like propaganda than journalism, this legal shift is a big part of that answer. Let's break it down. What was the original Smith-Mundt Act of 1948? Originally passed in 1948, the Smith-Mundt Act was a safeguard against government overreach. It prohibited the U.S. government, specifically agencies like the State Department, from disseminating propaganda or information intended for foreign audiences to American citizens. This logic was straightforward. The government could use media to influence people abroad, think Cold War era broadcasts, but it couldn't turn those same tools on its own population. This law created a clear boundary, ensuring that domestic news wasn't tainted by state-sponsored messaging. For decades, this restriction meant the mainstream media had to rely on their own reporting or publicly available sources, not government-produced content designed to persuade rather than inform. The 2012 modernization opening the floodgates. In 2012, the boundary was erased. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act slipped into the NDAA, lifted the ban on domestic dissemination of government-produced content. Now materials created by the State Department and the Broadcasting Board of Governors, now the U.S. Agency for Global Media, for foreign audiences can legally be distributed within the U.S. At first glance, this might seem like a practical update. Why not make government content more accessible? But the catch lies in the purpose of that content. It's not designed to be a neutral journalism. It's strategic messaging crafted to shape foreign perceptions, often in support of U.S. policy goals. By allowing this material to enter the domestic sphere, the modernization handed the mainstream media a new source of official information that isn't necessarily bound by accuracy or impartiality. Just we can see that in all the reporting nowadays. How the mainstream media exploit this change. With this legal shift, the mainstream media gained the ability to use government-produced content in their reporting, content that's inherently persuasive rather than factual. Here's how it works. Government-crafted narratives. The State Department creates reports, videos, or press releases to influence how foreign audiences view U.S. actions, like framing a military intervention or promoting a policy. This content is selective by design, emphasizing certain angles while downplaying others. mainstream media as a conduit. The mainstream media can take this material and weave it into their stories, presenting it as legitimate news because it comes from an official government source. They don't always feel compelled to independently verify or challenge it. Masquerading as journalism. When this content hits the airwaves or headlines, it's often framed as objective reporting. Viewers and readers may not realize they're consuming messaging originally meant to sway foreign opinions, not provide a balanced domestic perspective. The process blurs the line between news and propaganda, giving the mainstream media a way to misrepresent facts while hiding behind the credibility of government sources. Real-world examples. Foreign conflicts. Consider coverage of U.S. involvement in places like Syria or Ukraine, or just recently, I was going to put this in there, but all of it's not out yet. The effectiveness of the attack on Iran nuclear sites, but like I said, it's still a work in progress. The mainstream media might use State Department produced footage or reports that cast U.S. actions in a favorable light or demonize opponents. While not outright lies, these materials are curated to serve a narrative. When broadcast without context, they can mislead audiences into thinking they're getting unfiltered truth. Domestic issues. It's not limited to foreign policy. Government agencies produce content on topics like public health, COVID, or economic performance. If the mainstream media uses pre-packaged government takes, say on crime rates or inflation, they can amplify a politically convenient story, even if it's incomplete or skewed. Remember, they said the crime rates were going down. The only reason why the crime rates were going down was because they were refusing to charge anybody with crimes. They were just booking the people and then setting them right back out on the street to do another crime. I remember one story, this one guy was arrested, I think it was like 21 times in one day, and released right back out onto the streets in New York City. It's ridiculous. Domestic issues. It's not. Okay, I already read that. Why accountability slips away. All right. This is where the lack of accountability comes into play. When the mainstream media uses government-produced content, they have a ready-made excuse. We're just reporting what official sources provided. If accused of bias or inaccuracy, they can deflect blame to the government, claiming they relied on credible, authoritative information. It's a legal and practical shield that makes it tough to hold them responsible for misrepresenting facts. Compounding the problem, the public often trusts official sources, assuming they carry more weight than independent reporting. This trust gives the mainstream media coverage to broadcast government content without rigorous scrutiny, further eroding accountability. The result, a system where misrepresentation can thrive unchecked. From watchdog to mouthpiece. The mainstream media's role is supposed to be holding power to account, not amplifying it. But the 2012 modernization tilts the scales, allowing them to act as a conduit for government narratives rather than a skeptical filter. When they lean on state-produced content, they're less likely to question it, especially if it aligns with prevailing political winds. This isn't just a lapse in journalism, it's a structural flaw enabled by law. To be fair, not every piece of government content is propaganda. Some is factual and straightforward. I should put are. Some are factual instead of is. Some are factual and straightforward, but the potential for misuse is glaring, and the mainstream media's growing reliance on it risks prioritizing convenience over truth. What can we do about it? Well, if we want to claw back accountability, here are a few steps forward. Okay. Transparency first. The mainstream media should disclose when they're using government produced content. A simple, this segment includes State Department footage, would alert audiences to the source. Rigorous fact checking. Relying on government material doesn't absolve the MSM of verifying it. I should have put for verifying it. Oh, they need to treat it with the same skepticism as any other source. Turn to independent journalists. Supporting media that don't lean on government handouts can counterbalance this trend. Independent journalists are more likely to dig for truth than parrot official lines. The bottom line, the modernization of the Smith-Mundt Act in 2012 didn't just tweak a law, it gave the mainstream media a legal green light to misrepresent facts by leaning on government-produced content, all while dodging accountability. By flooding domestic media with material meant for foreign influence, we've weakened the divide between journalism and propaganda. If we care about truth in reporting, it's time to recognize this shift and demand better from the mainstream media. The stakes are too high to ignore. Okay. Hopefully that simples it down even more and y'all understand it better now, or those who have had questions about it understand it better now. I mean, I have been screaming about the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act for well over a decade now. You know, back in high school or middle school, my eighth grade civics teacher assigned me to write an essay on the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948 and what it meant. And so that's the only reason why I know anything really about it, you know. And then when I heard that Obama had modernized it in 2012, I had to go check to see what he did. And he only changed that one paragraph in it. That's all, you know, which made it possible for mainstream media to basically lie to the American people endlessly without any fear of being held accountable. You know, they twist stories, they take quotes out of context. People on both sides, you know, remember when they tried to shame President Trump for dumping that koi fish food into the prize koi fish pond in Japan, right after the Prime Minister of Japan dumped it into the prize koi pond, and Trump just followed him, but they cropped and zoomed in on Trump trying to say that he purposefully tried to kill these prize koi by overfeeding them. You know, the good people on both sides lie. I mean, hell, Biden even used that after the media admitted that it was a lie. It's just, we have to be able to hold the media accountable again for misrepresenting and only giving partial truths without doing anything. I mean, the reporters today are not reporters; they're just parrots. They sit there and they wait for the story to be handed to them. It's like a Mad Libs thing. They just got little blanks and they put in names in little blanks and then send it on out as a true report because it came from an official government source. You know, it's just, it has to be overturned, y'all. It has to be fixed. I don't see it being fixed until probably right after the midterms. And we need to really give President Trump a supermajority in the midterms. We're working on 15 minutes. That's where I like to keep my videos, is at 15 minutes. So we're at 14 and a half, well, close to 14 and a half minutes. So I'm going to end this here. And I may take a break for a couple of days. This whole freaking week, it's just nothing but repeat story of the bombing of the Iran nuclear power plant. There's supposed to be some pretty big decisions from the Supreme Court today. And one is supposed to be on these district court judges overstepping their power and issuing nationwide injunctions against the president's orders, or executive orders and commands. So be looking for that today. If I write about anything next, it'll be about that decision. So we're going to end this here. Y'all have a great and blessed day. Oh, and thank you to my paid subscribers over on Substack. Thank you.